So when you see those AR books come home, we want to see them read those nice, fun chapter books, but we also want to see some nonfiction along the way.
And I didn't really understand until I teach third grade or second grade until my kids went through second, and then I would sit down with them at night and do the work with them, and then I see what we're doing. I'm like, man, third grade is no joke compared to second.
It's a big jump.
So it's a lot. It's a lot of thinking. These questions aren't like, let me go back and look for this answer. It is based on the text. Why does such and such? And you got to think. You cannot. And when I check Katie and Jacobs and they're in 7th grade and 10th grade, I'm like, oh, I got to think about this one. There's always 2. So it's tough. It's going to be tough. They're going to struggle at first, but it's going to get easier the more we practice with them.
If your child says things are hard right now, it is. And it's not that we're trying to make it hard, it's just a huge leap from 2nd to 3rd grade. And then where they've done a lot of things together, we're not making them do things independently, but we're trying to teach it to them and then see what they can do. Right now, we're working on those easy questions that are textual evidence. And so you're seeing some of that maybe with the homework, with the little passages that they read, and then they have just a few answer choices and everything can be found. But we're going to move away from that pretty quickly because we want them to be well versed in those deep thinking and critical thinking questions as we go along. So it does get a whole lot harder, but we're trying to ease into it, even though it might not seem that way right now.
And you'll be amazed at what your kids are going to be able to do.
Yeah.
By the end.
They're going to grow a lot. So, in math, the biggest thing that you can do to help us is learn the multiplication tables. We teach them songs, get them to sing to you at night. And I know that sounds crazy, but brain research says if they will put it to music or a chant or a cheer, they will remember it so much better. So if you could get them to sing what they're learning at home, it will reinforce and help us so much. And this might sound really picky, but when they're singing to you, like 2 times, we go 2, 4, 6, 8, and I have my kids touch it like that, but that touch too is also a brain message. And so touching it, singing it, putting it to music and the chants, it just really does help them.
Oh, and don't watch them when you do like 6 times. I was catching mine today do this, like 6 times 7, they were going 6, 12, 18.
2 fingers.
2 fingers instead of 6, 12, 18, 24. They'll go 24. So if you see them doing that at home, look, stop, and just kind of hold their finger there.
Because that does become a habit. And we don't care if they use their fingers. I know old school is what I have memorized, they will eventually memorize them, but the music and the fingers is a way to kind of get them to that mode. So, everything we do in 3rd grade, with the exception of maybe graphs, revolves around this. They're not going to be able to do fractions well unless they can multiply. They cannot divide unless they can multiply.
My kids, I still have parents call me and say, my kids are still singing the songs, they're singers.
She was in Miss Council's 3rd grade class. Yeah. She remembers the songs from her.
So, I was like 6 when she was in my room. But no, those songs, if they know their multiples, they will be successful. If they don't, honestly, if they can't do the multiples, they don't sing them, they're not going to be successful in math. They just won't. But we're going to make sure they know them.
And encourage them to participate. Some of them, especially some of our boys, don't always want to sing, but it really does help them. So I've tried to explain to them, this does help it stick in your brain. It's a strategy that we're using. So. All right, how can my child be promoted to 4th grade? We want to talk about this because 3rd grade is the only grade that has this. Not anywhere else, not kindergarten, not 1st, not 12th, anything. You have to pass a certain amount of standards in order to make it to 3rd grade in reading. It's called the Read to Achieve legislation. So it's part of law. They did it a few years ago to make sure that children are caught in 3rd grade who cannot comprehend before going on. Because if you don't comprehend and you keep going, you're just going to dig a hole deeper and it's going to be more frustrating for the children. So this is the only grade level that does have that.
And when you get your VOG scores that they were sent home today or I've given them out, don't fret if they're at a 1, because a 1 is, you can't go any lower than a 1. A lot of them come to us as a 1. It's hard to make a jump more than 1 level. If they're a 1, they're usually going to be a 2 or a 3. So that's why we're pushing them. We want that 1 to grow to a 3, 4, or 5. So just know that we're doing all we can do to get them there, But it's a lot of work, and it's a lot of, on us and you guys. So
And
we
it feels
appreciate it.
like we're pushing it's because we are. We know what they have to do at the end, and so she's kind of already talked about that, but at the end, you've got to make a 3, 4, or 5 on the reading EOG. And basically, 95 is a level 5. So they only miss 2 questions.
And let me tell you a story about this. My little boy was in 3rd grade. It was 3rd grade when he did that too. And I was like, oh my God, 5, yeah, you know, I'm at home working with him, I'm excited. He got a score back and it said 4. And I went, what? Really? You know, I was like, Jacob. Well, I got to looking at the sheet and it said number of questions, 44. Number correct, 40. He only missed 4. And so it took, you know, him to a level 4, but I thought, so I went and questioned it. You only can miss 2 to make a 5. And like I said, you've got 2 choices usually that sound correct, that they're going to be like, oh, is it A or is it C? They sound so much alike that they're going to try to trick them.
So we teach a lot of test taking skills of, we know this is wrong, we know this one's wrong, we're left with these 2, and let's analyze those and figure out why this one is a better choice than this one.
Just don't get on your kid if they don't make a 5, because I was one of those parents that I was like, I'm so sorry, that's so good, you only missed 4.
Yeah,
so just know that it's you don't have any 5s on test.
And we don't want to overpressure the kids, but we do want them to take it seriously. You know, it's hard to know that balance. You have some kids that will worry themselves and make themselves sick, and then you'll have some that are like, oh, and they don't want to look up any answers. And so we as teachers have to find that happy medium and know which kids we don't need to stress out, and which kids we need to light a fire under. So that's, you know, if they come home and say, Miss Arnold says so-and-so, or Miss Gill says so-and-so, or Miss Daniel says so-and-so, yeah, we probably did, but it might not be because your child needed to hear that, somebody else may have. So, but this Read to Achieve legislation says they have to, if you go ahead and, yeah. It says they have to pass the reading EOG to go to 3rd grade, but if they don't pass the reading EOG, there are a couple of other ways that they can pass, okay? Alright, so level 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, a level 1 is that they are well below grade level. A lot of kids, as we said, when you get those BOG reports, score this, okay? But you have to think about it, they've never taken an EOG test. So this is the first time they've seen several passages put together with multiple choice. Nobody can help me. So a lot of kids do land here at the beginning, and that's okay. We're hoping they're here so that we can move them here and here, because it is really hard to take a 1, 2, or 3. But some kids, you know, it's just a new test, and some kids can do it from there. So it's not hopeless if your child did not score that level 2. We want them here, of course, but a lot of kids don't start there. So we're looking for a year's worth of growth, basically. So the other way that the child can go to 4th grade without having this is something called the RTA portfolio. I think it's on the next one. Okay. And what this is a portfolio that will start in probably the end of October, the beginning of November. We have 12 standards that the children have to master in order to pass. So basically 12 standards, they have to pass 3 passages for each standard in order to pass the portfolio. So the way that works is, right now I told you we're teaching textual evidence. So the first standard that we will try to get the kids to master is the textual evidence. We have that standard for fiction, and then we have it for nonfiction, so that's considered 2 standards. So basically we'll take Monday and Tuesday and we'll do 2 practice passages. Then Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday we'll really teach and use those to make sure, and we're already doing that, but really make sure the kids are ready. And then Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday, they'll take another passage on that first standard. And we'll put their scores in. Hopefully they'll all do well. But if they don't, we don't retest them on that one right away. We kind of keep going and we remediate that standard. And then later, around January, February, we start going back to those standards that the kids maybe were not quite ready for. And we remediate those again and we retest them. So we have until May, sometime in May, to finish that. But it's a lot, because 36 passages is a lot of passages to pass. They have the opportunity, I think they give us 20 to choose from. So your child may, if they're struggling on one particular standard, they may go through 10 passages before they pass it. We keep trying to remediate and remediate and remediate until we get them through, okay? I think, the thing that I have found about RTA is the children who pass this do very well with EOG. So the two things go hand in hand. It's a lot of work, but what I find is it's very good to prepare the kids for the EOG because number one, it tells me your child is having trouble with context clues. So I'm gonna drill context clues. Or your child's having trouble making connections. So we're gonna drill that. Or using pictures to make inferences. So depending on what the standard is, it's good information for us as teachers because we know how to work with them and how to move them to what they need. Because they basically take that test and they say, we're gonna do 20% of it's gonna be textual evidence and 5 questions are gonna come from inferencing and main idea and that sort of thing. So it's very strategic and broken down. So it's a lot of work. So if your child comes home and says, I passed my RTA, celebrate, you know, because that's a big deal.
And we can't send them home, they're under lock and key, so if you wanna know how they're doing, just call, email, whatever, we can tell you which ones they passed, how many they have left to pass, and that kind of thing.
And we'll give you some updates on that as the year goes on. So that's not anything to stress about right now, but, if that's something you wanna see, you can always come out and look at it. We won't get real deep into that until, you know, second 9 weeks.
Is it something they can practice at home, like work on at home, or is it something that's at school?
It's just at school, however, when we talk about some other things, like when you go over homework with them, and they have to underline, have you seen any of those home? Have y'all seen any of the reading home?
There's actually online, you can Google, that's what I do when I'm looking for them, they're released RTA passages that you can Google, North Carolina released RTA, and then I'll probably end up printing them and sending them, but it shows you all the standards in a passage that goes with each one, so you can kind of see what they're gonna be doing.
There's a sample, yeah. And but we'll send
Release North Carolina passage.
RTA.
Where you put read to
read
achieve.
to achieve passages.
Okay,
If you wait until it's over, I'll show you too.
okay.
And when we get to the end, we're gonna show you some things that will help us to get them there for those two, so. So they've got to pass, 36 passages, 3 per standard, and they get lots of extra time, so they get 2 practice, 3 regulars, and then if they still don't pass that, we keep remediating and going back and forth and reteaching until we get them there.
But they have to do what we teach them, because if they don't, they're never gonna get there. You know, you see some, they're not gonna underline a thing, and I'm like, it was right there, you didn't underline it, so they have to do what we teach them. That's what I tell them, you'll be fine as long as you listen to what I'm teaching you. If you listen, you're golden.
And that's our biggest struggle, is that we teach the strategies, but if the kids don't actually put the strategies into action, it's the same thing for math, underlining the 3 words, and really looking at what that question is asking you, getting rid of the answers that you know cannot be correct. That's our frustration, is that, you know, they'll do what we tell them, we can lead them there, we can get them there, but they just have to do it, religiously, and that takes some self-discipline and maturity, but we'll get there. If the children do not pass the EOG, if they do not pass the Read to Achieve portfolio, the STAR test for AR, I can't remember what level, but I think if they scored like it's 4.6, it's a higher level, then that's another way they can be promoted. So let's say that they don't meet any of those standards, then next summer they would go to what we call reading camp. They would have another opportunity at reading camp to take the test again. It's called the Read to Achieve test. If they don't pass the test then they would go to what we call a transition class, where they still go to John Small, but they're retained, but they're gonna remediate the 3rd grade stuff and continue with the 4th grade in a smaller setting. And then in November, they'll get to take the test again. They can either be promoted or they can stay where they are in that smaller group setting and still have some more support and help. And we have had some children who went through that process and did pass in November. They opted to stay in that smaller group just to kind of give them that extra support throughout the year. So that's nothing to worry about at this point. We're working really hard to get everybody there. And there's some other ways, you know, if your child has a learning disability or something like that, a lot of those things don't apply, but for the average child, those are the rules. We have to get them through those hoops. So that's why we're pushing.
And look, iReady, I was telling some of mine about doing that iReady at home. The more you do it, that's also a good cause exemption. So say they didn't pass the EOG, if if they don't wanna go to summer camp, they can score a certain number. If they score a certain number on already showing whatever growth, whatever they need to be at, that's another way to not have to go to summer camp. So getting them working on already at home. I listened to it last night, I put headphones on, I was like, I don't see what this is all about, cause usually I'm just like doing it. It is wonderful, it is boring, we know, I know, but it is good.
It really is.
Really good. So, 20 minutes a night, 30 minutes every other night. Is good.
It actually is a tutorial, and they're not gonna let, we have already on the last slide, something y'all can do at home to help us, but it's not gonna let them move on until they master the skill that they're on. So if we've taught it to them in class, and then they're getting it on iReady, or they're not getting it on iReady, they're gonna continue to give them a lesson, and somebody's actually talking to them, while they're on iReady. So it is mundane sometimes, but it's a great structural program that's gonna help them get it. The flip side of that is if your children have all the standards that they need, it's gonna advance them and move them forward, so they're gonna grow even more. So, if your child needs the remedial piece, that's great, but if they've got the standards, it's gonna move them forward and challenge them. So that's a good thing too. EOG testing is May 27th and 28th. IQ testing is in October. We don't have an exact date because we have to use computers. That's nothing for your child to stress or worry over, nothing for you guys to worry over. But it is taken on the computer, so we have to share computers, so that'll be scattered throughout October. But these 2 days, if you can mark those in your calendar, and I guess I'm gonna get on my soapbox, kids that are absent these 2 days and have to take it on the makeup day typically do not do as well. And you'd be amazed at how many parents will schedule a trip this week to go to Disney World or something because it's the end of the year. Make sure it's after that. Because they typically do better in their setting with their teacher who's been with them all year, with their peers and their classmates. Because when they come to makeup day, they're gonna get somebody who's, teaching art or music, somebody they know maybe, but not as, maybe as comfortable in that testing setting. They're gonna be in there with other kids, and it's just kind of a different thing. They always do better if they're here on the regular day. Now, if they're sick, well, of course, we don't want anybody to get sick during the middle of the test. We'll have to do the makeup, but they do better if they come on test day. This is for the kids who do not pass EOG. They'll take this Read to Achieve test. That gives them another opportunity. And this is a maybe. We have always retested kids. So like it's EOG, Read to Achieve, and then if they don't do the Read to Achieve or the first EOG, they get a second chance to do the EOG. That's a lot of testing in a week and a half period. So I'm not sure if they are going to do this or not. They've talked about opting out of that second retake test. So that's something we'll know a little bit later. But for right now, that's when it's scheduled.
I have a question. So like we have all this stuff that we can do for like reading and stuff. How about with multiplication?
It's iReady's math too.
Already is, we used already a little bit in second grade, but not, wasn't like this. So like the songs that you guys come up with, did y'all make those up?
I just passed out a thing, I used some songs on YouTube that's really good.
Okay.
And, just remind me, I'll give you, do y'all use those two, the same songs? Okay.
I've got the ones I made up and then the YouTube ones as well.
We kinda
You
all
can
kinda make
YouTube
up our own
multiplication
help
songs
too.
and-
Yeah.
Like flashcards. Flashcards are awesome. Just, over and over that repetitiveness. Accelerated reader, I'm gonna come back to that because we got to do AR together. Accelerated reader and accelerated math, we're lucky that we were able to get this program again this year. We are having some trouble with our scanners, but this is very much like AR. AR takes the child where they are. If they are on a first grade level, it's gonna let them read on first grade. If they're on third grade, they're gonna read on third grade. And of course that is the goal, but at least with AR, they're working towards something. If your child's not there just yet, it'll lead them there, and your teacher's gonna be really pushing for them to meet those goals each 9 weeks. They're reading that 20 minutes a night, and we base those goals on how much time we assign to read at night and how much time we give them at school. So if your child skips a night, they're behind on their goal. If they skip 2 nights, they're behind on the goal. If they're absent for 2 or 3 days because they're sick and they don't read, they're behind. Because those goals are based on that amount of time, and there's no extra 20 minutes to read at school. We just, our day is chock-a-block full. We do have that first thing in the morning, But if they miss it, try to make it up in just a few minutes increments. But basically, a picture book a day is what we're going for. Most kids can read 2 picture books a day. If they're truly reading at home, truly reading at school, they can get through 2 a day. At least reading test on one and be almost ready to test on the other one the next day. If it's a chapter book and it's worth 3 points, it should take 3 days to read. If it's a chapter book worth 5 points, 5 days to read. So that way you can kind of help us to guide them and say, hey, you need to read a few more pages, because reading 20 minutes might be this. Because a lot of us daydream and we get off task. So it needs to be a solid 20 minutes there. Accelerated math is the same thing. If your child is struggling on place value, it's going to continue to give them place value. And that can be done on the computer, but we're doing it with pencil and paper because it's easy for us to see what they're missing, and we remediate and do that one-on-one. So both of these programs are individualized, and we really are blessed to have those. Okay, so how can you help us? The first one is to check your child's planner for homework. I know some people write the planner every day. I know I give homework at the beginning of the week, but regardless, if you check that planner, you'll see what they have to do. When we send work home, I send work home as we finish it, I send it home right then. I think, Mrs. Council, you do Mondays? When do you do?
I do probably want
Yeah. So when work comes home and you see, oh my gosh, my child made a 60 on this, take that and go over what they missed, and that one-on-one reinforces what we're doing in the classroom. And we go over everything they miss. We're not sending anything home that we haven't gone over. However, there's no replacement for you guys doing that one-on-one. All right, check your child's homework nightly, because if I taught something in math that day, and you can catch their silly mistake before they do that, if it's 2 or 3 days before we catch what they're doing wrong, then they've learned it wrong and it takes longer to undo that practice. So anything that you can do to help us at night is going to be valuable, very, very valuable. Ensure that your child's reading and that they stay on task and that they really do. And asking questions and sign those reading logs. Study the nation, flashcards. Like I said, you can YouTube some of the songs and that sort of thing. Okay, so they have asked us to read an AR book to you guys, and we chose a really low kindergarten one because we didn't want to keep you guys forever. So Miss Ernie's going to read a book to you, and then we're going to show you the AR test so you can just kind of get a feel for what it looks like, and then you can ask us some questions.
Car goes far.
And this is a point, what?
Point 2.
Point 2.
So this is like not even kindergarten.
It's not even kindergarten.
Yeah.
Just so you can get an idea of what they have to log on, take a test, but their test will be much harder than that.
Car looks good. Car goes. Car goes far. Oh no, mud gets on
What'd
car.
she say?
Oh no, smoke gets on car. Oh no, birds make a mess on car. Car does not look good now. Car is sad. Car must wash. Car gets wet. Splash, splash. Car gets suds. Car gets a rub. Car gets wet again. Car gets
Good
dry.
evening, parents. We would like to thank you for coming out. Just want to make a quick announcement that we are going to be locking the building at 7:05. So we hope you have enjoyed your time with your child's teacher and learned a lot about AR and 2nd and 3rd grade, and hope you all have a safe evening.
You wouldn't spend the night back, you wouldn't work.
Car looks good again.
It's one thing I do want to tell you, like that was a point 2 or 3. If you see your child come home with a 1.6, that means that's 1st grade, 6th month. A 2.3 is 2nd grade, 3rd month. A 3.3, 3rd grade, 3rd month. And we try to give them a range. So if your child's reading in some of those 2s, it's okay, because we don't want to box them in and say, you can only read a 3.1, and then it lessens their chances of finding the book they'll enjoy. So we try to give them a range and let them enjoy some reading, and also the nonfiction books, we'll let them read a little lower on nonfiction because those are a year harder than a fiction book. So this is just a test. It's very simple. We just kind of want you to see what it looks like. Of course, it's harder the higher level that you have. So what gets on car? I can't read it. I can't their books to look up the answers. I don't think we said that. We allow them to use their books, so they should do very well. Okay, so what's the answer, class?
Mud gets on car.
Now, it will only read to children that are on those lower levels, okay? If your child is knocking it out of the park, the computer's not gonna read to them, okay? So there are a handful of books that it will read to them.
Car is tired, sad, or mad? Sad. Car is sad.
I bet y'all wish this was as easy as y'all's test.
Suds in a rub, new tires, or time to slow down? Good.
Can you click on it and we'll let you go?
What's the answer?
Car gets suds, car gets a rub.
And most are 5 questions unless they're chapter books.
Because that one is such a low level, it only had 3. Most picture books are 5 questions, your smaller chapter books are 10. If you're into the Harry Potter books, they get up to 20 and 30 questions. So it depends on how high the level goes as to how many questions they get. But it's a great way for us to keep up with their progress and if they're understanding and comprehending.
Mm-hmm.
Y'all have questions?
Are the AR tests something like EOGs? Like, will they have like the type of questions?
These are, to me, these are more recall. Not
These are
it's
the
not
easy
nothing
ones
like
that
the
you can go
EOGs.
by.
Okay.
However, it's very indicative of how children do. If children are successful in AR and they're reading, they're constantly learning. So children who are doing well in this typically do well there because they're reading for endurance for long periods of time and they're reading, we're able to track their comprehension. So if we know they're doing really well on a 2.5, we're gonna bump them up to a 2.8 and then to a 3.0 because we want to get them there because those levels correspond with that EOG text. So we're trying really hard and we're exposing them to vocabulary as well, especially with those nonfiction texts. So the more they read, the better they're gonna do.
This is the type of questions that they're gonna see. Like, for example, we read Sarah Plain and Dial. It says, how does the author show Papa's feelings for Sarah? There are always things to miss, said Maggie. Well, that doesn't show Papa's feelings for Sarah. That just shows Maggie asking something. You are lonely, yes, asked Maggie in her soft voice. I miss my brother William, said Sarah. And most of them are gonna put that because it says, I miss my brother. But that has nothing to do with Papa's feelings. But the answer is, Sarah's hair was thick with braids and wildflowers. Papa had picked them for her.
So they gotta make some
So you're like,
connections.
oh, so Papa picked flowers for her, then that must mean Papa really liked her. Doesn't that prove that his feelings for her, that shows his feelings, but it doesn't say he liked her because he picked flowers. They had to make an inference, so that's the kind of questions. It's not gonna be, just go back, like, how does the author show Papa's feelings? Sarah's hair was thick with braids and wildflowers, Papa had picked them for her.
So they have to do like critical thinking to
Yes.
make those connections.
Yes.
It's not gonna be.
It's not gonna be a lot of going back looking, it's gonna be reading it, understanding it,
Yeah.
and
However, there are some of those. So if the kids are good at going back, then they're gonna get those correct. You don't wanna miss those easy ones. And sometimes the kids will miss the easy ones because they don't wanna go back and look.
And so we're used to, where's the settings, time and place? Well, which sentence does the author use to describe the setting? This is the answer. At last Papa slid down too, as the sky grew darker and stars blinked like fireflies. Oh, the stars are coming out, they're blinking, it's darker. Oh, the setting must be nighttime. All those critical thinking, doesn't say it, but they got what it is, what it says on it.
So they have to have like the main idea, like main idea.
Main
like,
idea.
Main idea of the
What is the
story.
main idea, what is the central idea of this story? What is it mainly about? And they'll give you 4 answers, it says it in the story. All of them are in the story. But one of them says, what overall is it mainly about? And I think a lot of times they try to trick them, which is what I try to do too a little bit, so they get used to it.
Yeah, we do. We send some hard stuff just so they can get used to it. And a lot of times we hear, oh, it was easier than what you've been giving us, so that's a good thing. So we're gonna do everything we can to train them and to get them where they need to be. Do y'all have anything to add? I kinda talked all the time. Y'all have any more questions?
What do you like best?
Thank you guys so much for coming. If you'll leave us your surveys, leave it with your homeroom